Putnam of Melvin Myers on behalf of the defendant, AEG Live. Good morning.
Jessica Simmons-Pina for AEG Live.
Katherine for defendant. Good morning.
Sabrina Strong for defendant. Good morning.
Okay, thank you. Rebuttal on behalf of the plaintiffs.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, everyone. Okay, we are in the fourth quarter. You know, yesterday, AEG's lawyers got up here and said my name. We looked at it 50 times and attacked the plaintiff's counsel for trying to deceive you and for doing all these things that could be nothing further from the truth. You know, it's a tactic that someone that is responsible attacks another to avoid responsibility. And, you know, they say a good offense is a good defense, and that's what you've seen. And, you know, they started to talk to Michael about doing this, and they tried to mislead him with net versus gross. Then we go to Mr. Phillips, who says they hired him, the CEO, but we can't rely on that in this case. Then they proceed on to have Mr. Gongaware tell Dr. Murray what's expected of him, but they deny that they ever did that, and I will show you how they did. And then they continued to deny, even to their corporate lawyer, taking the witness stand, Ms. Jory, whose firm's been paid over $7 million, and says, oh, there was no world tour. I never told that to Los Angeles Police Department, and then we show that her and Mr. Putnam did. And, you know, whatever is convenient is what they're going to write down. And yesterday, I think, counsel said a lot of things that weren't in the evidence, but I only objected when he was way over the line, and the court sustained that. And what I'm going to do, I'm not going to attack counsel, because it's not about me, it's not about Mr. Putnam, it's not about Ms. Cahan, Ms. Pina. They're all fine lawyers. And if some lawyer has a better tie, you like them, or some lawyer smiles at you or something, that's not a reason to make your decision, because you're going to do a disservice to yourself, to the system, and everyone else. You need to make your decision based on the evidence in this case. And what I'm going to try to do with you is just to correct a few of the misstatements, but believe me, there were plenty. I'm not going to attack counsel. He's an advocate trying to do the best he can for his client. I don't have a script written out. I'm not going to stand behind a podium and read to you for 4 hours. I'm going to tell you from the heart what I believe the evidence has shown in this case. I'm not going to give you part of a document. I'm going to lay it out for you how I believe the evidence has proved that AEG Live is responsible, shared responsibility. That's what I talked to you about. And, you know, when you talk about personal responsibility, there's three things to personal responsibility. Number one, you have to accept it. Number two, you have to, if you're going to walk the walk, if you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. And number three, don't dare you do anything to get in the way of someone that's trying to deal with personal responsibility. And in this case, AEG has violated all three of the principles of personal responsibility. Number one, before you point the finger, you got to look in the mirror at yourself. AEG looks in the mirror at themselves, and they say, everything we did is fine. And they want you to believe Mr. Gongaware and Mr. Phillips' story in this trial. And one of the most important decisions in your life, they want you to base it on those two people, Mr. Gongaware and Mr. Phillips, and disregard all of the other evidence. Number two, they never walked the walk. They did a lot of talking. They never walked the walk. They didn't admit anything. And number three, how dare them come up here and accept no responsibility and put it all on Michael, Mrs. Jackson, Karen Fay, Alif Sankey, everybody but them. And when you're pointing the finger at someone, you got four fingers pointing back at yourself. And responsibility, it doesn't stop at the boardroom. Corporate responsibility is supposed to carry out throughout our society. In the social order, corporations have a right to go out and make money. And that's okay. But when you make money and you're in the money-making business, and make no mistake about it, AEG is in the money-making business. And when you're in the money-making business, there are certain responsibilities imposed on you by the law. And when you get involved in a situation like this, you have responsibilities. They're not imposed by me. They're imposed by the law in the state of California, and you're responsible socially and legally to act appropriately. And what they didn't act appropriately. And let me start off a little bit. First, by the way, I'm not going to talk all day. I'm going to get done. But, yesterday I saw you were very attentive, and I appreciate that with Mr. Putnam, and writing down things, and I wanted to jump up and say, that's not right. So I'd please ask if you could look. I'm going to try to give you exactly what you need when you go through the process and reason together to come to a fair and just verdict based on the evidence and the law. Okay? So let's talk about some of the things that AEG's counsel said yesterday. Number one, all they were trying to do was put on a concert. That kind of encapsulates that's all they're about. Putting on a concert, making money. They don't care about Michael Jackson. They don't care about Kenny Ortega. They don't care about Dr. Murray. He said it. He admitted it because it's true. All they're about is putting on a concert, deriving the benefits. And remember, Michael died. They got all their money back. And then they made a movie and more. They came out fine. They were trying to enhance their reputation, and we'll look at that, to compete, and they want to deny it, Mr. Phillips, with the 800-pound gorilla that he calls it. But make no mistake, AEG is a money-making company, and they wanted to make money. They wanted Michael to make, they didn't want to help Michael do a comeback. They wanted Michael so they could make money. And that's why they did it. So let's look at this. Another statement by counsel. This case is about choices we make. They made choices. Personal responsibility. What about corporate responsibility? What about Mr. Phillips and Mr. Gongor? Where are they? Mr. Trell, he's the corporate lawyer. He's here. Where have they been? Have you seen them? Do you think that they really care about this case based on their attitude when they testified and how they testified? Do you really think, are they worthy of belief in this case? Are you going to give a verdict based on what Mr. Gongaware and Mr. Phillips testified, self-serving statements? Are you going to do that? Are you going to let them get away with this? Because they think that they can come down here, big bad AEG, and we have an army of lawyers, 7 or 8 people. They got rows of them. You've seen them all. If we got the Army, they got the Marines, the Navy, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, the National Guard, all of them. They got them all. And I'll get up to court. They got 3 of them objected at the same time. Who's trying to bring the whole truth to you? Is it AEG? Or do they think they can convince you it's all Michael? Michael's a bad person. He took Demerol in 1993. He did this in 2002. Okay? They want you to not like Michael. Okay? Is that what this case is about? That you don't like Michael? And they bring up, he was charged criminally, and he had this, and he didn't have any money, and all that. What does that have to do with AEG negligently hiring, retaining, or supervising Dr. Murray? What does it have to do with it? Nothing. Next. I told you at the beginning of the case, it's a case about shared responsibility, okay? We're not running from it. Michael paid the ultimate price. He's not here anymore, okay? Sure, he took propofol. But remember, every time he took propofol, he didn't die until one thing happened. An unfit and incompetent doctor in a conflict of interest situation did it in an inappropriate setting. Okay? So, he died from propofol from Dr. Murray. There's no question about that. But he's paid the ultimate price. His family has admitted that he has some responsibility, and that's for you to determine. But they accept no responsibility. Dr. Murray, we know he's been held responsible. He's been determined what he did. He's paying his price. But they want to skate right free, get all their money back, come here and say, hey, we know the jury. They're not going to do it, man. We're AEG Live. We can do this. They're not going to impose liability on us. Because look at Michael Jackson. Oh, look at his mom. She wrote a letter to People magazine. She's a terrible person. That's what they want you to do. They say, just answer that question no, and you could go home. Because they don't want you to look at all the evidence and all of the law after 5 months. They want you to go and say, oh, we didn't hire him, see you later. Despite the fact that the CEO said it before there are any lawyers, before there are any lawsuits, when he knew there was no written contract within days of Michael Jackson's death. But we're not to believe that. And I'll get to that, okay? So come on. I mean, they think they can hoodwink you. I mean, that's why we're here. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. All right. And AEG, they're the only ones that have accepted no responsibility. Now, let's talk about corporate responsibility. That's just as important as personal responsibility. And today in our society, you know, when it says people don't take responsibility for their acts, how about corporations? Do you think that they're all taking responsibility for their acts? Do you think that's happening in today's society? The only way that the Jackson family can be on equal footing with AEG Live is in the jury system. We can't compete with them, their size, all the people they have. The only way is 12 people fairly picked. And think about it. When you came down here and you got that summons, did you think you were going to be on this jury to decide this case? No way. Some of you gave up assignments. You've missed vacations. You've had to change your whole life. You came down here, you go, okay, I'm going to come down. I'm a good citizen. I'm going to do it. But did you think you signed up for this? Nobody did, okay? But did any one of you try to get off and leave? No. You know why? Because you believe in the system. Even though it caused personal hardship to each and every one of you. And I appreciate that. But this is the only place there's a level playing field where Michael's children and mother can be on an even, level playing field with AEG. This is it.
Improper to appeal to the size or corporate status of a defendant in closing argument.
And there we go. Who's bringing you the truth?
Overruled.
You know, see, like I told you, who's bringing you the whole truth, okay? You saw it throughout the trial. How many? 3 lawyers objecting at the same time. Sidebar, don't do that, you can't do that, you know. Come on. Sit over there, read the objections. It's on another script. That's what this is. They prepared with the jury consultants been here every day. You saw it from the beginning. Okay, this is a scripted performance by AEG Live that they want to get away with it. Okay, that's what it is. And you heard Mr. George, the last witness. I called him and asked him. He said corporate responsibility and accountability are very important issues in this society today. And they are. And that's what you're going to assess. And personal responsibility, okay? It's important. But what? It doesn't apply to corporations? Corporations are made up of people. So what is the truth here, really? The truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Remember, we only have to prove this by more likely than not. Okay? Oh, this is Mr. AEG Live lawyer. All those emails, trust me, there are a lot of emails. I'd love to have them not be here, okay? Oh, we just gladly turned them over. They didn't gladly turn them over. We had to get a court order to get those emails. They weren't voluntarily producing anything in this case. You saw how they've defended this case. But they want you to believe what Gongaware and Phillips said, not what they wrote in the emails. Okay? Thousands, tens of thousands of emails. Where are all those emails that say something different? Where are they? That's another lawyer-created defense, part of the script. And they're hoping you go for it. I want you to, if you could, write these are what I consider the key emails in the case. First, per our agreement, I'll show you, that's Dr. Murray saying there's an agreement. Trouble at the front, we all know. You know, you guys probably know these better than I do, but trouble at the front, and there's numerous chains. We check everyone out. Remind him who's paying him. Okay? I didn't write these emails. These aren't my arguments. These are written before there's any lawsuit, before Michael is dead, before the lawyers are involved. Am I blocking you guys? Sorry. That Murray and Phillips are in charge of rehearsals. I didn't do that. They did that. That Michael's thin and skeletal. I didn't write that. They did. That he's a freak. I love that. And I'm going to get back to that. Mr. Trell and his other lawyer friend referred to Michael Jackson, who they're entering into a multi-million-dollar contract with to build up their arena, as a freak. That's how they think about him. Did you hear an apology from anyone about that? Did you hear Mr. Trell get up here all the days he's been here and say, you know what, we didn't really mean to say that was not a nice thing? He never said that. He tried to defend it to the end. Michael Jackson's a freak. He should be ashamed of himself. They're not, though. This is the man you want to remember. They're a money-making machine. Freak, whatever. That they don't care. They don't care about the person. They don't care about the individual. All they care is how much money is this freak going to make for them. That's what they're all about. Stahl, Dr. Murray, gross versus net. Okay? I'm going to read them off. You got them, right? You're probably tired of looking at those. But I think they say it all. And remember, these are all written by AEG, and of course, none of them even remember writing these. And 10,000 emails. You think that if a guy got an email that the star of the show, who they couldn't do the show without, that had 35 million in it, they might remember writing the email? Maybe? Come on. What are they trying to do? They're trying to hoodwink you. Okay? You're going to go for it? Michael's a bad person. Michael chose a doctor. We'll get to that. But these are their emails, not mine, not my arguments. I didn't hear them explain any of those ways. They don't want to bring up the freak. They don't want to bring up, we check everyone out and explain that on Kathy Jury's 10-minute Google search. Where's the email on that? It's not right, ladies and gentlemen. And it's not responsible, and it's not right, and it wouldn't be the right thing to believe Gongor and Phillips and allow them to skate down the street and click the champagne glasses down at AEG Live. Okay, this is an important instruction because this is instruction on witnesses. You can believe all or part or none of a witness's testimony. You decide that, not me, not them, you. You saw them. You have common sense. I mean, some people have children, and your children tells you something. You know whether they're being truthful or not. People deal with it. You're trying to buy a car, and they're working. You know whether they're telling you the truth or not. You know what somebody at work is telling you the truth. You know if a player is telling you the truth or not. I mean, we don't have a film of everything, but we got emails. Okay? You decide. And what's the reason? Miss Jory, why would she have any tendency not to tell the truth? Well, we brought the police officer to show that because her firm, the biggest client, they're getting all this money from AEG Life. Do you think she might want to shade it a little bit for AEG? Just a little? Come on. And if a witness testified deliberately untruthfully, you can choose not to believe anything. Like Miss Jory, I never told the police officer that. Okay, I'll bring him in. I did. We'll see that. Now, they want to call this the Brady Bunch. Well, I'm glad Marcia Brady's not here. She'd be not upset about that. They think that's funny. Over there smirking, that's funny. That's not funny, okay? Is that bringing the whole truth? What we have here is just some of the answers that were played at trial. Just some of these individuals that they want you to rely upon in this case. And they think it's funny. It's funny. Ha! Oh, that's the Brady Bunch. Ha, ha, ha. I don't think it's funny, and I don't think you think
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
I don't remember it.
I don't remember this email.
I don't remember receiving this email.
I do not remember the specific email.
I'm not going to go through every one of them. That gives you a little flavor. Those are the people that they want you to base your verdict on. Is that bringing you the whole truth? Oh, AEG, we want the whole truth. Really? Really? Come on. Mr. Phillips, what's his main job? To protect the financial interest of the company. That's his job. He's concerned about it. Why would he deny all of this information? Ask yourself, why would somebody in a deposition under oath and in court deny that they knew anything about something? Wouldn't you think if you're the CEO, and it's not like some underling wrote the emails, He wrote the emails. It's not like somebody working underneath you wrote it and you were CC'd, you might have. He wrote the emails. Gongwer wrote the emails. Then he says, companies are people. We make mistakes. No kidding. Okay? They're people. They don't want to accept zero responsibility. Then he said, I asked them, did you rely on your attorneys to prepare for your depositions? No, I didn't. I didn't prepare for it. Wow. So here you are in the Michael Jackson case. You're not going to just prepare. You're a CEO of a large company. Then I said, so you just figured it wasn't necessary? No, you were too. And then he says, I didn't feel, they felt, my lawyers, that it would be better if I went in without doing any preparation with them. Is that looking for the whole truth, ladies and gentlemen? Did they stand up here and tell you they want the whole truth, yet they tell the key witnesses, all you got to do is run a search for emails of Murray, you're going to get them. There's only so many. I just said there's like 9 key emails. And they're going to tell a witness to come to your deposition and don't be prepared. And is that someone that is trying to give you the whole truth? Come on. You're not going to fall for that. And Mr. Gongwer, same thing. Do you think it was in your best interest when preparing for your testimony under oath in this case in December not to review any emails and not remember about them? Answer, I relied on my attorney's advice. So yes, I think it was in my best interest. So it was the best interest of him and AEG Live to remember nothing. Is that someone that wants to bring to you, ladies and gentlemen, the whole truth? I don't remember anything. Come on. Then, deposition that we played is substantive evidence. It's the same as if you're testifying in court. It has no difference. And they know that. This is a big law firm. They're experienced lawyers. They know that if you testify one way and you change it, you're going to be impeached and you're not going to be credible. But they chose to go that route. They chose to go that route. And why do you think they would do that? How about this one? I love this one. Mr. Meglin, remember he comes in here and I ask him, all right, so come on. In your opinion, is Celine Dion a bigger artist than Michael Jackson? In my opinion, Celine Dion is right up there with Michael Jackson, yes. And to me, she is bigger. Now, it's not that big a deal in this case, right? But this shows you, and I'm going to show you, how far they will go to say what's convenient to them when they think it hurts them. And how about this? Do you have to remember the truth? Is the truth something that you have? Hold on, let me remember what the truth is. I don't remember that. But then you remember certain. Is it hard to remember what the truth is? Or is it hard to remember what your story is going to be? On Michael Jackson, who's not looking good, who's having problems, people are telling you he's dying, and you're not going to remember? You know, what do they say about he who seeks to deceive, what a tangled web they weave? Why would they do that? Why would they do that?
AEG felt that the right thing for Michael to do was to go out and play public again and kind of reclaim his throne as the greatest live entertainer of all time.
Greatest entertainment of all time, but Celine Dion's bigger. That's what they said in the This Is It movie. By the way, they made the movie, and I'm going to show you, but they want you to rely on something they made after the fact, stories that their executives made up after they testified one way. Okay? How about this one? Mr. Meglin, was it demand for This Is It better than the demand for any other show you've ever seen in your life? Answer, it was no. We sold as many tickets on Voodoo Lounge in one day. In terms of the number of tickets sold in a day, sure, we've done those kind of numbers before. Okay, so that would lead you to believe not a huge deal, right? Okay, is that a reasonable interpretation? Okay, it was good, but not the best, right? What does he say? Before there's any lawsuits, before there's any lawyers. This is what he says at trial. What does he say in the movie?
This was at a stratospheric level. This was at a level that we had never seen before.
Stratospheric level that we've never seen before. They say, this is all filmed before. Now, he's got a different tune. Are you going to believe him? Mr. Phillips. This is what Mr. AEG Live lawyer told us. Randy Phillips is a schmoozer, artist relations. It's because he loves music. He loves the music business. He loves the artists and he loves shows. That's how they portrayed him at the beginning in his opening statement. Remember that? Okay, that's what he said. Let's see what Mr. Phillips said when I asked him that. I don't particularly love music. That's not why I got into it. I love the deal. I love the money. I love the deal. Music, artists? Did he say I want to help artists? I really love music. Did he say that? No way. Because he doesn't. You saw him. He doesn't care. You saw his attitude when he was testifying. Come on. They want to say I made fun of him. You know what? I don't believe anything he said. And he was impeached more than many witnesses. And
On their own personal beliefs.
that's what he was doing all day yesterday.
Sustained.
Okay. You shouldn't believe anything he says. And that's funny. They think it's all funny, right? This is the CEO of their company. That's funny to have your CEO come up there and not remember anything. That's funny in somebody that died. Is that funny? I don't think you think it is, ladies and gentlemen. Who's bringing you the whole truth here? They say whatever they can whenever it's convenient. Let's take a look. They want you to say, oh, watch the movie. It proves everything, right? The movie. Who made the movie? AEG Live. Who produced the movie? AEG Live. It'll be right in there. You'll see it. Okay, let's look at this first one right here. Randy Phillips. Make sure we take out the shots of MJ in the red leather jacket at the soundstage where the mini movies were being filmed. He looks way too skeletal. Does that say that he knew or should have known something about MJ's condition? That's Exhibit 638-115. Okay? Does the movie accurately portray Michael that they want you to rely on? Let's look at the next one. Mr. Ortega, I asked him, sir, you were involved in reviewing the footage, and I think you called it editing. Yes. When you edited the film was not intended to show how Michael was performing during the rehearsal. Was it? My goal was to edit together the pieces to help tell a story of what Michael's goals were. And this is at page 9892 to 9893 of Mr. Ortega's testimony. So then he says, what his goals for This Is It were? No, sorry. Was the film itself intended? Was the intention of the film to show how Michael was performing during the rehearsals? Okay? They want you to say, look, see how great he is? And look what he said. That wasn't my intention as a filmmaker. I mean, of course, I wanted Michael to look great always. So they want you to look at an edited version with dubbed sound to say, see, he was fine on something that they made. Let's continue to look. Here's another one. This is what they don't want you to see. This is after the fact, Mr. Gongaware, about interviews. We're okay with the band, singers, and dancers doing interviews now. The only thing we ask is that they keep it positive and stress that MJ was active, engaged, and not the emaciated person some people want to paint him as being. They don't want the truth. You got to give a positive. They're controlling people all the time because that's what they do. That's exhibit, I don't know. Anyway. I mean, come on. I didn't write these emails. And Miss Fay, we asked, were you involved? Yes. What was your understanding of what was being asked to do? To come and help retouch the footage. Did you do that? No, sir, I didn't. Why not? It was a lie. I didn't want to lie, sir. What do you mean? Everybody was lying after he died, sir. That Michael was well, and everyone knew he wasn't. And I felt retouching Michael was just part of that lie. So they want you to rely on something that they edited, that they try to make Michael look as good as he could, that wasn't intended to show how he was performing, to prove that he was fine. Is that bringing you the whole truth? How about this? Another thing they don't want to talk about. This is from Randy. Or, hi, Randy, Karen Fay. I don't know who the video crew was at rehearsals, but I saw them shooting Michael at his worst on the day he was shuffling and wrapped in a blanket. I told Kenny to make sure they wouldn't shoot him like that, be sure he wasn't aware they were shooting him, and would be careful in the future. It's disconcerting that footage exists. Karen wanted Michael to look good. She wasn't trying to prepare for a lawsuit. And what does Kenny say? What does Randy Phillips say? We control all the footage, and it's locked in a vault at Staples Center. Did he say, no, we're going to do an accurate depiction. We're going to show when he's wrapped in blankets, when he wasn't doing good. Did he say that? No. He says, we control it all. And it's locked in a vault. There it is. We control it all. It's locked in a vault. Does that sound like people that are trying to bring you the whole truth? AEG, we want the whole truth. We were not afraid of the truth. Okay. Actions speak a lot louder. That footage didn't make it in the movie. And Michael doesn't look good in the movie anyway. But they want to think you're going to buy that. All right. Then I asked Mr. Phillips, did Michael ever perform the whole show? No. He never sang all the show's dance? No. He wouldn't have. They weren't ready for that. So as of the time he died, a week and a half, 2 weeks before they go to London, he wasn't even ready to go through the show. But they kept pushing forward and pushing forward. Then, Mr. AEG lawyer said yesterday regarding supervision, they aren't supervised. You heard from Mr. Trell and Ms. Young that independent contractors aren't certified or supervised, and plaintiffs didn't give you any evidence otherwise, okay? That's a defense. We don't have to supervise, right? That's what they're saying. Mr. Trell said that. He says that, okay? They misstate the law continually because here's the law. That's not true. Here's the law. 401 instruction. A person hiring, supervising, retaining another has a duty to exercise reasonable care in doing so. A person is negligent or he or she does something that a reasonably careful person would not do in the same situation or fails to do something that a reasonably careful person would do in the same supervise. In this case, you were to evaluate whether AEG acted negligently only in connection with plaintiff's claims that AEG hired, supervised, or retained. That's a legal duty imposed by the law. But they say, we don't do it. So we don't have to follow the law because we're AEG. We don't have any duty to do that. But that's not what the law says. They're trying to tell you things that just aren't true. Here's another one. Mr. Panish, this is 50 times they said it. My mom she never called me Mr., but she would call me a lot, but not nicely. But Mr. Panish told you yesterday that figure $59 million. He said that a couple times. That was made up. He made it up, okay? I made it up, right? I made it up. That's what he told you. Y'all wrote it down. Not all. You, a lot of you wrote it down. I saw it. I wanted to jump up. What could I do? Well, let's see what the evidence is. Do you remember that guy, Mr. Ackerman? They paid about $900,000 to who I said, okay, Mr. Ackerman, let's get you your figures, and I want you to do some calculations. I don't have my calculator. I can't do it. I'm not ready to do that. Dr. Formousas could do it, but I don't know. I can't do that. I don't know, right? Well, here's the evidence. What he says, he made it up. Now, hey, I'm big. I can protect myself. But that's not right for the family to be making attacks on the lawyers saying they're making things up in court. Come on. Does that bring you the whole truth? Here it is. Exhibit 1960, and there are 3 exhibits of his calculations, $12,874,000, $15,618,000, $15,572,000, $15,810. Check it out. Check me out on that, okay? He called me a liar. No, Your Honor,
There's an objection.
It's error to argue against the law, and he's talking about undiscounted figures, which
No, it's not.
they're been instructed not to consider.
Your Honor, it's improper objection.
Is this in evidence?
Yes.
Okay, overruled.
Yes, it's in evidence. I just made it up. Poof. Poof.
Exhibit 12960.
And there's 3 of them. 153, 160, 157, 008. Poof. Just made it up. Who's bringing you the truth, ladies and gentlemen? Okay? I know I'm getting animated. I have passion. I'm sorry, but it's not fair to attack someone, a lawyer that's being an advocate for a client, and say they made it up. And all. It's just not true. They'll say anything when it's convenient, okay? Go look at those exhibits. You add it up, and you see if I made it up or not. Okay? You add it up. I just made it up. Poof. There it is, 59,874. Next. And I say this because I remember all the important things he got wrong yesterday. Mr. Irk getting his numbers from AEG. He didn't. Another attack. Everybody wrote it down. Not everybody. People wrote that down, right? Okay? What is the truth? Here it is right here. AEG Live did the projections, $108 a ticket. Mr. Irk, $108 a ticket. 1.6 shows a week. And here's the testimony. Briggs, testimony, 1.6 shows a week. Both of them, attendance. 55,000 for Briggs, 49,000 for Irk. These figures, AEG. Okay? And I'm going to talk about that for a minute here. They say, he was never going to do a world tour. On one hand, they say, but then they want to say he's going to do a 10-year world tour. First of all, this is not a 10-year world tour. It's 37 months. Okay? So that's another misstatement. But if Michael Jackson had proper care, remember, he was fine when they met him. He did the physical. He was doing fine until the pressure started creeping in on him. And he couldn't sleep. And Dr. Murray broke his oath because of the conflict. I'm going to explain that to you. But if he had proper treatment, if Dr. Murray, they got a sleep doctor and proper treatment, he'd have been fine. Because AEG had this all planned out. They didn't just want the O2. They were thinking big, the biggest. They want to make money. They're a money-making machine. Mr. Phillips said, we had a 4-year plan. And there's all those emails. He denied it. I had to bring out the emails to show him. But now when it's convenient, he would have died, or they made it all up. 1.5 billion, they made it all up. This is their figures. There's Mr. Gongaware, 5547. It's going to be a multi-city tour. Paris Jackson, my daddy told me we're going around the world. So did everybody make that up? Or just me? Or just Mr. Irk? Or Mr. Phillips? Or Mr. Gongaware? Or Mr. Putnam? Because then I asked Miss Jory, did you, Miss Jory, tell the Los Angeles Police Department, you and Mr. Putnam, that London was just the beginning and there was going to be a world tour? Remember that? She says, absolutely not. And you're as sure as that of all your testimony, right? I never told that to the officer. So I brought him in, Detective Smith. And what did he say? Let's look at this. Let's start with the statement that you wrote down on the official Los Angeles Police Department form. Okay. Why don't you read it to us just about the world tour? Miss Jory and Mr. Putnam stated that this was only the beginning. MJ was to do a world tour that would last 2 to 3 years. Question, did you actually write that down? Yes, I did. So, were Miss Jory and Mr. Putnam not telling the truth to the Los Angeles Police Department in an official investigation? Or was Miss Jory not telling the truth when she came to court? The person has firms paying over $7 million in the last several years by AEG Live. What motive would Detective Smith have to make that up? And why would he have it, not only in his official police report, but in his handwritten notes, which he saved? And usually they don't save it. He saved his handwritten notes and wrote exactly that down. They'll tell you what's convenient when it serves their purposes. And who's really bringing you the whole truth? Then I went on and said, did you scribe those notes in the report? Yes, I did. And tell us exactly what you transcribed. So first he wrote it on his notes, then he wrote it in the police report. Mr. Putnam and Miss Jory stated The European tour was just the beginning, and that Michael Jackson was going to do a world tour that would last 2 to 3 years. So, did we just make that up? Did we just make that up? Or was Mr. Putnam and Ms. Jory making it up to the police department? $340 million, they're saying, in non-economic damages. And you know one thing they didn't dispute in this case? He didn't say that was unreasonable. He gave the figures, and you know why? Because he knows in a wrongful death, for the evidence in this case, well, they've attacked everything we've said in this case, but they know that's not unreasonable for the relationship. They know it's not unreasonable. They attacked everything except for 2 things. That and question 4, which I'll get to, they skipped it because they have to concede it. Everything else, from the beginning of the trial till today, still, with the objections, they're fighting. But they didn't fight that because they know that's a fair and just verdict for these 3 children and for Mrs. Jackson and for what they lost. Okay? And I said I invite Mr. Putnam to get up here and give a different figure if he thinks this is unreasonable. Remember that? And certainly he said a lot of them. We said my name 50 times, and certainly he attacked me on a lot of things. But he didn't attack on this. $35 million in the past, $50 million in the future for the children, $35 million in the past for Ms. Jackson, and a similar number in the future. Okay? That's the figures, because they know that's reasonable, not contested. Now, the 5 questions. They said there's only, well, they said 5 but 4, but let me go through them for you quickly. It's hot up here. All right, let's take a water break. I need some Gatorade, extra electrolytes. All right. You know in society, when you go buy something, everybody's bought something as is. You buy a car, as is. You could buy a house. You could buy something as is. And when you buy something, you can't go back and say, hey, there was this problem, there was that problem. And when AEG, they knew everything about Michael Jackson. They said, we didn't know. They knew. They knew what issues he had. They knew what his age was. Mr. Gongor had worked with him before. But now, when they come into court and they're supposed to pay full justice, they don't want to pay it. Hey, wait a minute. This guy was damaged. This guy, he was 50 years old. He couldn't do this. He took Demerol. He did this. Now, when it's time to make up full justice, they don't want it. They don't want to pay it. Why? Why is that? All right, let's talk about the questions. Now, you heard a lot about it. First, did AEG hire Dr. Murray? Man, I heard so much yesterday. Who paid Dr. Murray? Who chose Dr. Murray? Who was Dr. Murray's personal doctor, right? All that. Who asked for Dr. Murray? Is that question on the verdict form? Who chose Dr. Murray? Is that the question that you have to answer? Did I miss it? They hired Dr. Murray. Let me tell you how. Was he unfit? Yes. Did they know or should have known he was unfit and put others at risk of harm? Yes. Did they skip 4 because they conceded that? Substantial factor in causing the death? Yes. So I'm going to explain why to you. In this one, they don't even contest it. They conceded it, believe it or not. Because how could you say that Dr. Murray didn't harm Michael Jackson? It's a little tough, even though they fight everything else. Now, in considering whether, question 1, whether they hired or didn't hire, AEG or Michael or both could have hired Dr. Murray. Okay? Both. They keep saying, Michael chose him. Michael, it was his doctor. Michael, Prince gave him some $100 bills. You know why he gave him $100 bills? Because AEG was stiffing him and they weren't paying him. I'll show you that. But the question is, who hired him? And it can be Michael, AEG, both. And that's what happened. I believe Michael requested him. They said, he never consented. He never consented. I thought he requested. But then they say, on the other hand, he requested Murray, but he never consented. He requested Murray, but he never agreed. What is it? Randy Phillips admitted it, Tim Woolley admitted it, and Mr. Gongwer admitted it. I'm going to show you how. Those three facts. The CEO admitted it, his assistant admitted it, and the CEO of Concerts West, co-CEO, admitted it. Okay? But we can't rely on that. Okay? This question is not there. Whose personal doctor was it? Who insisted Murray hired? Who selected Charles Murray? That's not the question. And, that's a lawyer defense, technical and show contracts and all arguments. That's not the question. Okay, he was Michael's personal doctor. Did Michael insist that they should hire Murray? Yeah. Okay, great. Did he choose or select? Yeah. But they didn't have to hire him. They could have said, no, we're not hiring him. But none of those questions are on the verdict form. You don't have to answer those questions. You have to answer, did AEG and Michael hire Dr. Murray?
We just felt this is his personal doctor. He wants him 24/7, and the guy's willing to leave his practice for a very large sum of money, so we hired him.
Can we not rely on the CEO saying something? Mr. Putnam says, oh, you can't believe that, okay? I mean, here we are, hours and days on that issue, that they're trying to tell you the sky is not blue. They're trying to sell ice to people in Alaska. Come on. I mean, if you're going to fall for that, I think you're going to disregard all the evidence. How could he say? He never came in and said we didn't hire him either. You know that? He never said, oh, we never hired Murray. I was mistaken, because they have no problem coming in. That contract was mistaken. That was mistaken. That was mistaken. He never said I was mistaken when I gave a worldwide interview within days of Michael's death. He never said that. Mr. Trell never came in and said that. They didn't show you the whole clause of this contract. I hate getting into contracts. It's pretty simple. We don't need to go any further. But just so everybody that believes that all the people here think I responded. This is where they say, oh, Michael's responsible. This is in the MJ contract, January 28th. In the event that shall Artisco be responsible for any claims arising out or related to the negligence or willful conduct of any promoter-related indemnities, promoter breach of this. Now, why would Mr. Gongaware on June 14th on this exhibit tell them to remind Dr. Murray who he's working for and who's paying him and extend to what is expected of him if they hadn't hired him? Do you go around, does your boss go around and tell your neighbor, hey, remember what's expected of you? Hey, we're paying your salary. Do they do that? When somebody's not, do you go around telling people that don't work with you what to do? Well, other than your kids or your spouse, but do you tell them, remember who you're paying? Remember who's paying you? Remember who's responsible if you didn't hire somebody? Conrad Murray thought he was hired because on June 28th, after those emails, he didn't show you this. My contract taking a little more time. The written contract. Remember, in the entertainment business, they're doing all these contracts. Ortega, Payne, Fay, all these people. If they had to wait till everyone had a written contract, nothing would ever get done. So they make an agreement orally, and then they put it in writing. But that doesn't mean you didn't hire someone or you didn't make an agreement. They want to get all these technical, well, Michael didn't sign. Well, they never sent it to Michael. But Michael didn't do this. Michael insisted on the document. I mean, come on. He doesn't have to sign for oral or implied in fact contract. So Dr. Murray says, I performed and continue to fulfill my services in good to the client in good faith. Therefore, I am asking you to deposit my fee for May in reciprocity of good faith on your part as per the agreement. Per our agreement. Agreement, contract, that's what the instruction says. That's what Murray says right there. Exhibit 232, May 28th. And not only does he say that, he goes on to say the customary date, which they had agreed to prior, which you'll see in the other emails, the 15th of each month. By today's date, we are 13 days beyond receipt of my monthly fee. deposit my fee in May per our agreement. Did Mr. Woolley write back, so we got no agreement. We're not paying you, Murray. You're not working for us. We didn't hire you, Murray. Mr. Gonga, where? Did he write Murray? Did he write and say, what's expected of you, Murray? We're paying you, but not really? No. They knew there was an agreement. They hired Murray. With or without Michael, it's clear the intent of the parties was there's an agreement and they owed the money. But then they wanted to stall Murray, and you saw those emails. More stalling games by AEG. Now, this is more of the contract, which I have right here. This is Exhibit 168. If there's a written agreement, it supersedes any prior agreements or understanding, oral or written. Paragraph 18. So, yeah, when there's a written contract, you can get paid. But doesn't mean you didn't hire someone. And this shows that everyone knew there were written or there were oral contracts that were later going to be made to this. And this agreement affected the artist is conditioned upon approval and consent of the artist. The written contract. But Michael had already said, hire him. That's what they kept saying. Michael said to hire him. Michael said to hire him. But Michael didn't consent to the oral contract, which he doesn't have to. He told them to do it, and they did it. And Gongor wrote, done deal, May 6th. And Murray's trying to get paid for his work of May 28th. He's worked 28 days, and of course, they don't want to pay. Surprise, surprise, huh? Here we are again, they don't want to pay. I mean, there are other provisions in this contract. You know, they show you that one with a line crossed out, which is not the one signed by Murray. Perform services reasonably requested by the producer. If you don't hire someone, did they perform services for you? Paragraph 7.2. If it's canceled or postponed at any time for any reason, Murray's out. But then Mr. Putnam told you yesterday, Murray didn't even know that until June 16th when Kathy Jory sent him the first draft of the contract. Remember that? He didn't even know that. Okay. Not true. Okay. Murray needs 10 days to wind down on his practice. Consented to the agreement. That's exhibit number 175. And he was done in 10 days. They're saying, he was leaving in California. He was living in California. Sure, that wasn't right. Then how can he wind down his practice? He didn't have a practice in California. Then he'll be full-time, and he was full-time. Now, question number one. Remember, AEG doesn't have to hire Murray alone. It can be Michael and AEG. I believe the evidence supports answer yes to question one. Spent way too much time on it when the CEO of the company admits something that we have to still debate it. And that's kind of the way the whole case has been. Whatever they admit, they deny, and hope somebody will go for it. That's what it is. That's what they're doing. All right. And again, I told you, the verdict form doesn't say who chose, selected, recommended, pay Murray. That's not the question. So please focus on the question. They hired him. All right. Now, question two. Was Murray unfit or incompetent for the job he was hired to do? Why was he unfit? And I wrote down the three, what I think are key points here for question number two. Number one, the point is, it's not when they hire him only. It's the entire time. Okay? They want to focus on when they hired him, but it's the entire time. And then they want to focus on Michael. They said, well, we want to focus on Michael Jackson, not Murray. But if Michael Jackson is Murray's patient, and how Michael Jackson is doing is not well, doesn't that raise a red flag about the physician who's supposed to be there 24/7? Okay? Think about it. So, it's at any time, not just when he can be hired, and they don't even have to negligently hire Murray. All they got to do is hire him. Then, he needed sleep, pain, and drug dependency treatment or oversight or management, whatever you want to call it. And then, as early as May 8th, they created that conflict of interest. And really, when you boil it all down, the conflict of interest is what caused it all. Because of Murray's financial condition, and they could pull the plug on Murray They brought Murray in because they knew they needed Murray. And they brought Murray in to keep Michael going. And now they want to act like nothing happened. The train's going down the road. They're seeing these signs, and what do? They stop the train to see what's going on. They just put more coal in it and keep moving straight ahead. Okay? Right here. Number 2, incompetent. Conflict. They were pressuring Murray. And the pushback. Remember, when Kenny Ortega and Bugsy and these people are saying, hey, we got all these problems. We got all these problems. Do they go find out what's wrong with Michael Jackson? Remember Mr. Trell said that would be something good to delve into. Do they go do that? No. They never found out what was wrong because they didn't want to know. Knew or should have known. They didn't want to know. They didn't do anything to look into it. Would a reasonably careful person that's retaining and supervising a doctor, the patient of the doctor is doing terrible, would they ask the doctor what's wrong with the patient? Maybe? What do you think? But they should have never even been involved. Why are they getting involved in Michael Jackson's health care? Why are they drafting a written contract that Michael Jackson never saw or asked for? Because they want to control it all. They want control. Why would they do that? No one in the history has ever done that. Why would they do that? Think about it. Why would they draft a written contract for Michael Jackson's alleged doctor that he chose and selected? Why? Because they wanted to be able to control Dr. Murray and get whatever they wanted and to get Michael there because, number one, they had no insurance if Michael didn't make it. And they could be out $35 million. Remember, they couldn't get sickness insurance. Cancellation insurance was only $17.5 million, and they were double that. And when you're in a money-making business, you're not in a money-losing business. And they were protecting, as Mr. Phillips says they do, the financial interests of the corporation. That's why they wanted control of Dr. Murray. And that's why they wanted a written contract which raised the conflict. Now, number one, remember in March, the press conference. Mr. Phillips says Michael's emotionally paralyzed, riddled with self-loathing. He's got to slap him, put him in the shower. He's worried. Then he says prescription, they talk about the drugs, overuse issues, insomnia, and pain management. But instead, there's a cardiologist to treat heart problems or ailments like the flu and the cold, which he doesn't have. So why would they do that? He wasn't competent. There's no question. Now, remember I said, Mr. AEG yesterday told you that Dr. Murray never knew that the contract could be canceled at any time till June 14th. Remember that? And Dr. Murray never knew. Well, on May 8th, Exhibit 177, it states...
Mr. Panish, 5 minutes before the break.
Thank you, Your Honor. AEG contract would not cover more than 1 month in lieu of notice if there's a curtailment or cessation of the tour. So how could they come here and tell you that he didn't know this to June 14th when he's getting an email on May 8th? How can they say that? Who's bringing you the truth? Is that the whole truth? Take a look at that. Exhibit 177. All the terms, the fees. Murray wants to get paid per our agreement. Gongor's trying to tell him what to do, but they didn't hire him and there's no agreement. Next. Question, or maybe this is a good time, Ron. This is a long one.
Come back at 11:15. Katherine Jackson versus AEG Live, BC 4455597. One thing, Mr. Panish, we will go into the noon hour a little bit so you can finish, and then when we come back, then we'll do the concluding instructions. So you take into the noon hour to finish. Okay?
I was going to tell everyone I was going to finish in an hour to look good, but I know you gave me an hour time limit, so.
Okay. Another hour. Okay.
Okay. So I'm only going to be an hour. Appreciate your attention. And before I go back into question 3, death of someone doesn't ever go away. It reverberates throughout your entire life, and it's not something that you just, okay, the next week you forget about it. It's something that never goes away. As I told you yesterday, death keeps no calendar. And it's not like opening an old wound, because the wound never goes away. And people's lives are turned upside down by death, especially unexpected death. And time does not heal all the wounds. And that's why there's an enormous loss in this case. So let's talk about number 3. Unfit or incompetent, knew or should have known. Mr. Putnam kept saying notice. That's not in the instruction. It's knew or should have known, unfit or incompetent, and or incompetence created a particular risk to others. Number 1, unfit. Should have knew or known anytime. They want to focus on little bits and pieces, but you got to look at the whole picture. Number 2, that the unfitness started with the conflict and the pressure and the pushback. And Dr. Murray, he was morally unfit. Dr. Murray didn't pay his bills. Dr. Murray didn't even pay child support for all these children he had. He was morally unfit, and the conflict just came out even more and more. And the Los Angeles Police Department figured this out within 2 days of Mr. Jackson's death when they found the card in the contract. It didn't take them very long to be on this. 2 days. Now, let's talk about incompetency. Number 1, we know that Michael was having deteriorating health condition. That's all AEG's own emails. Numerous people were crying out about his condition. Hugdahl, Fay, Ortega, Sankey. A reasonable company, as Mr. Trell said, would delve in to find out what is wrong. Is that unreasonable to say when the person that's in the one person, if he's not there, there's no show? You're trying to make money. Would it be unreasonable to say, what's wrong? Is that putting a heavy burden on them? What's wrong? Instead, they tried to silence the people that were sounding the alarms. They told Kenny, hey, Kenny, enough, something like, something about fires, don't try to burn down the whole building, kind of, I forgot what it was. Anyway. And they want to discredit the people that were sounding the alarms. And you heard Phillips, Ortega, Payne talk about Michael appeared to be assisted. Something was wrong. And they knew that. And Ortega, as Mr. Gongor said, was the person in charge of everything. And he told them, Mr. Ortega's job was to report if there was a problem. And he did. And what happened? He got attacked. Particular risk. The risk needs to be associated to the job of the contractor. Here, a doctor. It doesn't mean they had to know about propofol. We hear all this locked room, propofol. Particular risk is bad medical care. That's what the risk is. Bad medical care. When you put a physician in a conflict of interest, the risk isn't that he's going to drive his car and run over someone in Michael Jackson's driveway. Okay? The risk isn't that he's going to run a stop sign. The risk is he's going to give bad medical care. That's the risk. That's exactly what he did because of the conflict. So this whole version of propofol, is just a red herring. It has nothing to do with what they knew. So what they knew or should have known, bad medical care. And they say, well, you got to look at, they want to look at Dr. Murray. You got to look at Dr. Murray. Well, if you're looking at a doctor to say, how's the doctor doing? Do you just look at the doctor, or do you look at the patient that they're treating? What is the best evidence of whether a doctor's doing a good job? The patient. Now, the patient might have cancer, some other problems. There's nothing the doctor can do. But if you have a healthy, otherwise healthy, 50-year-old man, past the physical, they all say he looks great, and all of a sudden he's taking a sharp decline, as Mr. Phillips calls it, hasten his decline. Wouldn't you think that you got to look at, come on, doc, what's wrong? Why is this happening? You're going to get $150,000 a month. And why is Michael Jackson going downhill? That wasn't what we wanted you for. We wanted you to take care of him, not to make him worse. So let's look at this. Knew or should have known at any time from May 6th, May 8th to the day of his death. Now, let's talk about what Mr. Ortega said. Mr. Ortega, the reasonable person, suspected Murray was unfit. I asked him, did you have a concern about Murray as a doctor? I really didn't know what Murray did. But Michael showing up in that condition, I had a concern. Okay? Next. And you had a real concern about Dr. Murray at this time and his work as a professional for Michael. Answer, yes. So, come on. Of course he had a concern. Of course everyone had a concern, and I'm going to show you that. And then Mr. Trell told us that an independent contractor does something wrong, you can be sued. Yeah. If a lighting person you hired is an independent contractor does something wrong, there's a fire, someone gets hurt, you can be a defendant in law. Yeah, they know that. Come on. So, they had to have some idea. They all knew something was wrong. And then they want to give you the example. The plumber, the electrician, Dr. Murray. Okay? Well, let's look at that. If the plumber fixes a pipe and it breaks and a leak and there's a problem, are you responsible? If the electrician that you're hiring does a bad job and the house burns down, yeah. It's the same thing as the doctor. If he's doing a bad job, they'll say, oh, that's in the dark. That was the great explanation. Well, that's in the dark. It doesn't really look that bad. You heard Kenny Ortega, because I've never seen him like that. Horrible. Okay. Number 4. Unfitness, incompetence, harm. Well, the defendants didn't even dispute this one. Of course it did. The conflict, his unfitness, incompetence, he caused the death of Michael Jackson. No question. Now, substantial factor. They spent a lot of time on this, and their main argument was, we're just on the sidelines, We didn't know anything. We didn't know anything. Now, conflict of interest occurred because Dr. Murray's in dire financial straits. They're the ones that put the contract language together, not Dr. Murray. They're the ones that want to enter into a contract with Dr. Murray. Michael's health was seriously declining. No dispute. Although they want to dispute it, the evidence is contrary. They were pressure on Dr. Murray, and they were pushing back anyone that had a problem with Michael's health. Anyone that raised the problem, did they say, oh, thank you, Kenny. Let's meet and let's find out what's wrong with Michael. Did they do that? No. They call a meeting and they say, you stop it. You stop it. We're in charge. Mr. Phillips and Dr. Murray are in charge. You stop it. Substantial factor. Okay. It doesn't have to be the only cause. Think of it this way. You heard the instruction. There can be the more than one cause. Think of a bicycle built for 2, and 2 people are pedaling the bicycle, like setting the concert up and do it. Both could be responsible. So it has to be a reasonable person would have considered to contribute the harm. It doesn't have to be the only harm, only cause. There can be multiple causes. Like Murray. Murray, obviously, in conjunction with being there, is a cause. But if Murray's not there, it doesn't happen. Now, they argue that it's not a substantial factor. The harm would have occurred without that conduct. So in other words, they're saying, well, if there's no Murray, no profile, then Michael's going to die anyway. Okay? That's what they're saying. But what evidence do they have of that? Let's look at it. Remember Dr. Matheson? They say, oh, it's a clever theory. Dr. Matheson, one of the leading medicine ethicists in the world, Stanford University has a great reputation, said, and it questions, is there an accepted set of criteria within your field to determine the severity of conflicts of interest? And this is at page 8624. He said, I think the one that's most widely accepted is the Institute of Medicine, was part of the federal government. Okay, that's a standard in the industry that does research and determines problems in the medical profession. Okay? So let's take that a little further. And Dr. Green agreed with the Institute of Medicine definition. A conflict of interest refers to a set of conditions in which professional judgment concerning a primary interest, such as the patient's welfare, is unduly influenced by the secondary interest, financial gain. Now, we all know that a doctor's not supposed to do things because of money. And we've heard the HMOs and all this issue, and the doctor can't get this and that. The doctor's duty is to the patient, number one. And most doctors in our society, they do a good job. They don't have a problem. We don't. There's no doctors that have a contract. And this is the doctor they say is competent and fit, shuts down his practice, all his patients in 10 days for money. You think, wow, this guy's allegedly making all this money, has all these practices, and for 150 grand a month, he's going to leave all his patients in 10 days? Come on. 10 days? Fully engaged in 10 days? Do you think, mate, wait, wow, I thought you were so successful you had all these patients. You can just leave everyone in 10 days? Would a fit and competent doctor dump everybody in 10 days for money? I don't think so. Now, let's go to the next one. Dr. Matheson testified, and this is page 8625, that this was the most severe conflict of interest he's ever seen or read about in any medical literature or study or all the cases that he's reviewed. The most severe conflict of interest he's ever seen. Think about it. A doctor leaves everything, and if the patient can't do what the person that you have the contract with, you're cut. And now you have nothing, and you got all this debt. And now what do? You do what's best for your financial condition. Just like AEG did what's best for them to make money. Now, let's continue on. Page 8603, Dr. Matheson. I want to direct your attention to the June time frame. Remember, you just can't look at it in little snippets. You've got to look at the whole picture, the coalesce of everything. Do you have an opinion in the June time frame as to whether the conflict of interest created by AEG likely led to Dr. Murray's substandard medical care? No question he gave substandard care, okay? Yes, I do. What is your opinion? My opinion is that the conflict of interest contributed in a very significant way to Dr. Murray's standard of care. Okay, one of the leading experts in the world came in here and testified, and he answered the questions. You know, that's the thing. You didn't see the judge have to say, answer the question, move the strike, answer the question. He answered the questions. They asked the question, he answered them. Okay? But then he goes on to say, my opinion is that the conflict contributed. Then he said, I think the way it happened was the conflict of interest was set up by AEG. The physical symptoms started to appear with Michael, documented, as Dr. Seisler said, better than any clinical study. And there was an attempt to control those, and the other people who wanted to register their complaints were pushed back. So it played out in late June, leading to Michael's death. And that's what happened. Dr. Murray violated his oath. AEG and all their people saw that Michael was deteriorating, and instead of calling a timeout and checking it out, or as Kenny saying, have another doctor, or as Mr. Bronca said, I know somebody to get in, and Mr. Phillips says, oh no, not now's not a good time to introduce somebody else into the mix, because you can't imagine the consequences if we pull the plug now. Okay? Would a reasonable person say, whoa, time out? No. They would say, yes, time out. But what happened? How did it play out? Okay. This is important, and I appreciate if you could write this down. Okay, we know, and this timeline kind of proves it all. June 13, Dr. Murray held MJ out of practice, okay? June 14, Ortega writes Gongor and says, were you aware that Murray kept MJ from rehearsal? Now, why would he be writing to Ortega and saying, Ortega writing to Gongor, rather than saying, were you aware Michael didn't go to practice? They didn't say that, or rehearsal, I'm sorry. No, they said, Murray kept him from going to practice. The person that they didn't hire. Why did he just not say, Michael didn't come? He said, because the doctor didn't let him. So, okay, maybe that's a good decision by Dr. Murray, right? Maybe he wasn't up to it. Maybe there was a problem, so he held him out. That would certainly seem reasonable, wouldn't it? But then what happened? June 14th, Gongaware immediately writes back, we're going to remind Murray it's AEG, not MJ, who's paying his salary. Okay? The same day. So, instead of saying, how's Michael doing? What's wrong with Michael? Can we get help, Michael? Let's go see how's Michael doing. What did Dr. Murray say is wrong with him? No, he doesn't say anything. He doesn't care about Michael. He doesn't ask how's Michael doing. He says, remind Murray, we're paying, not MJ. Remind him what's expected of him. Okay? They want to control, keep going. Now on June 16th, remember on May 6th, he says, done deal. May 8th, Willie sends all the terms to Murray. May 28th, Murray's saying, where's my money? Okay, we have an agreement. And all of a sudden, remember June 16th is the meeting, all of a sudden, after he says we want to stall Murray, they send him the written contract on June 16th, right when all this is going down within a day and a half. Is that a coincidence that all of a sudden, when Michael's not coming to practice, when he's saying to remind him, they immediately send the contract. Jory sends it to Wooly, who sends it to Murray. You think that's a coincidence? Then, that's Exhibit 266. Within 2 days of this problem developing, they don't say, well, call Dr. Murray, see how he's doing. They said, send him the contract that says you answer to the producer. Then on June 16th, they have the intervention meeting. That's their meeting. So in response to that, and who's at the meeting? Gongaware, Phillips, Murray, and Michael. Okay? Then what happens? June 19th, 3 days later, Michael's in bad shape, all the emails, trouble at the front, and doubt is pervasive. Everyone at AEG knew. Doubt is pervasive. It was sent to the highest level of the company. They knew there was a problem. Doubt is pervasive. That's Bugsy says that. Trouble at the front. Doubt is pervasive. Is that new or should have known? Okay, and go look at the whole picture now. Michael doesn't come on the 13th. 14th, they send the email, remind him, or Ortega tells him. Gongaware writes back to remind him who's paying him and what's expected. And within 2 days, they send him the contract. And 3 days later, Michael doesn't come to practice. I'm sorry, I always say practice rehearsal, but it doesn't come to practice. And doubt is pervasive. That means all around. Everyone knew. And remember, they can be negligent in supervising and retaining at any time. So do they go and find out what's wrong? No. What do? Well, there's a 25-minute phone call on the 20th between Phillips and Murray. Now, of course, Phillips testifies under oath that was 3 minutes or less, is only about scheduling. Well, then we get the phone records, shows 25 minutes. What do you think they were talking about during those 25 minutes? Because it wasn't about how Michael's doing, because Phillips never found out. And he told, I don't know. Then they have the meeting, and there's two different versions of the meeting. Remember? The meeting on the 20th, it's all rushed. They run over to Carol Wood, okay? Ortega says Murray's accusatory, threatening him, saying all these things, and he leaves in 15 to 20 minutes. And he basically says he's dismissed, I think is the word he used. And then I was dismissed from the meeting. Okay? Then Phillips says the meeting lasts an hour and a half, and everyone stayed together and left together. Why would he say that? Ortega said 15 to 20 minutes, and he was accusatory meeting, and Phillips says, it was great, Everyone had a good time. It was a productive meeting, all this stuff. Remember his emails, on that date of the 20th, he lies about Murray to Ortega to silence him. We checked him out. He's successful. He doesn't need this gig. He's not unethical. Okay. Well, he certainly realized if somebody needed the gig, they could be unethical and do something. But he lied. So here's the exhibit we kind of copied a little bit, and I want to show what this timeline that Counsel for AEG went through yesterday. Okay, number one, they said, Murray prescribed medicine on January 25th, meaning he was in L.A. Well, he didn't move to L.A. These are Las Vegas records, and he called in cold medicine on January 25th, okay? That's the first fact. Second fact, they have a meeting with Dr. Adams, the Kevin Garnett lookalike, said that they never discussed propofol. They discussed narcotics, and Michael, said he didn't want any. I never discussed propofol with Murray or Michael Jackson, okay? And as I said, propofol, maybe it's not the best idea, but if you have a competent doctor in the right setting, you're not going to die. Dr. Adams, if he was there, he wouldn't have died. He's competent. Number three, Mr. AEG Live said, oh, hey, Kai Chase saw Dr. Murray with oxygen bottles and everything, right? In April to prove that he was getting propofol. Well, she came back in June of 2009 and said Michael looked very different. He appeared weak, much thinner, undernourished, didn't look the well as he had in April. It was an obvious difference because we know that Murray didn't start the propofol until after that time, and I'll show you how. Number one, Kai said Murray wasn't around much in April. And they want to call Kai Chase a liar that was paid off by Mrs. Jackson. That's what they said yesterday. Kai Chase, lie. She got paid off by Mrs. Jackson to come in here and lie. I mean, come on. I mean, what lengths will they go to trash everyone? Kai Chase, she's a nice person, okay? She tried to do the best she could. She was there trying to pull Paris down the stairs when she was trying to she had to grab her by the ankles, and Paris was screaming about her father when he died there at Carrollwood. She says, did you ever see his car present when you got there in April? No. Did you see oxygen tanks in the house in April? No, I did not. Did you make dinner for Dr. Murray in April? No. Did Murray take food upstairs in April? I didn't see Murray as much in April because he wasn't given propofol in April. Despite what they say, well, he ordered it, so he must have been given it. He could have been doing this. He could have been off on the weekend. There's no evidence of that. Let's look what the evidence is. He asked Cheryl and Lee on the 19th, and she said that Michael wanted to try these natural remedies for sleep. Can't remember the name of it now. Cocktail, was it? Myers? Sorry. Try not to think about cocktails. He didn't want to use any sleep prescriptions. When they talked about it, they had a plan. He wanted to go natural. Okay? So he's not getting propofol. But he can't sleep. He's desperate to sleep. So she set up the time with the injections. She saw his body. There's no IV marks of anything that she suspected. And from that time that she saw him, he was doing fine. And then we go to still on the 19th, no IV poles in the bedroom, no Diprovan boxes, no oxygen tanks, all on April 19th. Then the next day, well, it was actually the day before, Metzger says he went upstairs, then they said he didn't go upstairs, then he said he went on the landing. Bottom line is he didn't see any medical equipment there either. Doors were open. And they always want to put that lock on the door. That doesn't mean anything. They don't need to know that he's given propofol. They need to know, or should have known, that the risk of substandard medical care or bad medical care can occur. And it occurs because of the conflict. Again, there's no question, did AEG know that Michael was using propofol? That's not what you have to decide. Did they know, or should they have known, that Dr. Murray's unfitness and incompetence caused a particular risk? That's what they have to know. And the particular risk is the medical treatment. Now, late April, Gongaware says, first he tried to say it was at the dancers. Isn't that interesting how when they're questioning him, when I question him, he doesn't know anything. When they question him, he's like, oh, yeah, I remember. It was right after April 14th in the dancers, and that's when I talked to Murray, right? Come on. And then he says, well, it was 2 to 5 weeks before May 6th that he talked to Murray, not late April. And that's when they had the $5 million discussion. Now, who in their right mind is going to think it's no big deal? Some doctor is going to leave everything for a payment of $5 million. Okay? Now, let's look at the next one. Remember they went a big deal about these propofol orders, April, May, June. Okay? And there's records. But do you remember also that you just don't give propofol, you need to have lidocaine, right? Okay? And when was lidocaine ordered? Here's the exhibits. I can never read this. All right. Jeez. Oh my gosh. I don't know. Hell. What's the exhibit number? Help me. 4544. Something like that. Okay, May 12th and June 10th is when they ordered lidocaine. Right after May 6th and May 8th. Huh, surprise, surprise. They didn't bring that up, did they? Now, remember Detective Martinez said lidocaine's a local anesthetic. It burns, and when it's going in, it's usually reduced to burning sensation. They found it in Michael's room. It was the propofol given by Murray that caused the death with the lidocaine in Michael's room on June 25th, after they knew about all these problems. So we know that Michael wouldn't take it without it. Next thing we know, there's no evidence of any use of propofol before May 6th. Remember we made a big deal about when they made the contract? There's no evidence before May 6th. And if you go through an 8-week decline, it almost adds up perfectly to June 25th. Dr. Murray, remember Dr. Seisler talked about an approximate 60-day of regime, and Dr. Brown from Harvard on the video said that they were trying to wean him off the propofol, and that's why he got the organic sleep. Remember Kenny said, man, he looks so good, the organic sleep. And at the meeting, they told Kenny on June 20th, hey, oh, man, he's fine. He looks great. What does Kenny say? I was flabbergasted. There's no way he's like that, okay? So then what happens? Late April, he first talks to Murray. May 6th, they agree to the 150. They're getting ready to leave for London. His condition is steadily deteriorating. Kenny said he didn't think he was ready. That's 298. Any postponement causes Murray to lose 150 grand a month. Murray tells Kenny, stay in his lane, stop sending MJ home. You can't imagine the harm and ramifications of stopping the show. That's what Phillips says. And Phillips sits there while Dr. Murray is reading the riot act to Mr. Ortega, who's trying to help. And what does he do? He does nothing except for lie about how long the meeting was and who left and the tone of the meeting and everything. I mean, if he really cared, would he say, hey, this is what's wrong? Remember, we asked him, well, what was wrong? I don't know. He wouldn't want to know. He didn't want to know. He didn't have any insurance. And then MJ's security calls Dr. Lee. Michael was feeling hot on one side of his body, June 21st, 4 days before he died. They called Dr. Lee. Murray signs the agreement on the 24th, which Michael has never seen a copy of, nor any of his representatives. After the rehearsal, he gives them the benzodiazepines. Remember, it's the benzodiazepines and the propofol. And Murray was more interested in keeping the show going than keeping his patient alive. And then the paramedics come and they say, hey, the guy looks like he is in the last stages of disease. He looks like a hospice patient. And the first thing he asks, is there a DNR? Do not resuscitate. So Mr. Seneff is 30-some year paramedic. He doesn't know anything. He sees him. He thinks the guy's dying from a bad disease. The guy that they say is fine and could do everything. Okay? Doesn't add up. Now, let's talk about the pressure. Ask Kenny, was there pressure on everyone to make sure this got ready to go? Yes. Not just you, but Michael, the whole group. Was there pressure? Pressure is building? Yes. Time pressure. Next. AEG's lawyer said, plaintiffs try to argue that Dr. Murray did what he did because of conflict of interest, because Dr. Murray felt pressure from AEG Live to return Jackson to the stage before he was ready. It's a very clever theory. Okay? But we came up with that, right? Guess who came up with that? I didn't come up with it. It was the truth. And guess when they found out? AEG knew, but they didn't do anything about it. Orlando Martinez, the detective from the LAPD, within 2 days of Michael's death, he found the card and the contract. That's all he had. And what did he say? Well, when you saw the card and the contract as an investigator, is there anything that drew your attention to that anywhere where you wanted to channel your investigation? Answer, yes. What was that? Thinking at that moment, at the moment, that the crime that may have occurred was negligence, partly due to incompetence. After seeing the contract and the amount of money involved, focusing on whether for a motive, the financial aspect of it may have been important to Dr. Murray. His willingness to, disregard his Hippocratic oath for financial gain. So this is the theory that we're the clever lawyers that came up with, that the Los Angeles Police Department, who's not involved in this case, had within 2 days. And the reason it took 2 days is because they couldn't just go in Murray's car. So they had to get, a warrant, or actually, I guess it was a search warrant, even though it was a death investigation, to go in there. I mean, Detective Martinez was on it in 2 days. It's not us coming up with a clever theory. Anyone that saw the contract, and they would know, hey, wait a minute, what's this guy doing? Why are they paying him this money? Because they want to control him. Okay, this is it. I talked a little bit about it already.
About 2 years ago, we were building a new arena in London, which was in and of itself an amazing feat because there's no land there, and that was called the O2. It's the most successful arena in the history of the arena
why would
business.
they do all this?
The goal there was to go after a handful of worldwide superstars and convince them to residence
Go
there.
after.
And Michael was at the top of the list. I mean, it's a short list. Then early September of 2008, I got a call from the gentleman who I work for, and he said Michael was actually ready to come back to work, and he had asked for me. So I quickly went and met with Michael at the Bel Air Hotel, and it was really then that, looking him straight in the eye, that I actually realized this was not a wild goose chase.
No, I mean at that point.
About 2 years ago, we were building a new...
I'm sorry. Well, he's going to that. This is when, you notice how Mr. Phillips has no problem answering questions and talking? Very, explanatory, everything. Okay? In October, remember, Mr. Anschutz, the head of the man who wasn't here and never came, was overseeing everything. Mr. Anschutz calls Mr. Phillips and says, get on this. And he says, we wanted to go after. That was his words, go after. And then he says, we've lived his last two major tours, Mr. Gongaware. We know the history, problems, and idiosyncrasies. We will not overestimate his power and potential, and will not make mistakes that could cost him his career as the ultimate artist. We will maximize it. They had a plan.
Bel Air Hotel, and it
Let's
was
go
really
back.
then that, looking him straight in the eye, that I quickly went and met with Michael at the Bel Air Hotel, and it was really then that, looking him straight in the eye, that I actually realized this was not a wild goose chase, that he really was ready to go back on stage.
AEG felt that the right thing for Michael to do was to go out and play public again and kind of reclaim his throne as the greatest live entertainer of all time.
Then what happened? This is the guy they wanted, the greatest entertainer they want to make all this money with. They're telling Mr. Trell, Mr. Fifth Grade, talking about him being a freak. Then they get him to sign this contract, January 26th, the freak that he was going to meet with. He put up everything he had, guaranteed everything he had under 16.3 to do this. Goes to the press conference in March. They had to throw him in a cold shower. They slapped him, and he screamed louder. I don't know who Arthur Castle is.
When we did the press conference in London, it was the biggest press conference to announce a live entertainment project I've ever seen.
Scariest thing he's ever seen in his life. This is from Tim Lewicki, the head of all of AEG, CEO. We played his devil, couldn't remember anything.
This is it. I mean, this is really it. This is the final curtain call. I love you so much. Really. From the bottom of my heart.
This is all from the
This is it. And see you in July.
Then the executive says Michael was underwhelming.
We put the
He
shows
didn't
on
get
sale.
the feel
We
he
had
could
2
do
days
it.
of pre-sales. We had the fans register on michaeljacksonlive.com 8 o'clock in the morning when we started.
What does Mr.
It
Phillips
just
say? Now I
exploded.
have to
They
get him
went
on
as fast
stage.
as we could sell them. I guess it was
Scary.
an hour maybe that before all those tickets were gone.
This was at a stratospheric level. This was at a level that we had never seen before.
We sold 800,000 tickets in the United Kingdom.
And then he says,
one's
odds.
ever done that
I get
in an
him
arena.
through the 50
So we still have the
shows,
whole rest
and
of
he
the
says,
world,
that's why
you
the
know,
insurance
hungry and
companies
waiting.
get so rich.
When the shows actually sold out, there were still 264,000 people in the queue waiting to buy tickets, and that's enough to sell out easily another 50 shows.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Jackson has left the building. Well done, everyone. Well done.
So they had a plan in place, and they didn't want it derailed at all, no matter what the costs, at all costs, and now they want to avoid responsibility. And they needed Dr. Murray, and they knew that. All right. Let's talk a little bit about Michael's fault, and then I'm going to get done. So I told you that this is a case about shared responsibility since the very beginning. And I told you that, yes, Michael had been told that propofol can be dangerous. Okay? Yes, he had been told that by at least 3 people, maybe more. But he trusted doctors, and maybe he didn't make the best decisions. But when you evaluate Michael's fault, you have to evaluate it as the same or similar person under the same or similar circumstances. He was being pressured. He could lose everything he had. He wanted to do this, not only for his children, but he had financial issues, and he wanted to do it to make money for his children. And he was going to give them everything. So when you evaluate it, and I know they want to talk and blame him and, attack him, all this stuff. Okay? But let's look at the law. They claim that he was negligent, contributed to his death, but they have to prove that. That's their burden of proof. And they got to show that it was a substantial factor and cause of his death. Now, if Murray didn't give him the propofol, he wouldn't have died. Remember, counsel told you, you know what, you're going to see, we are going to show ugly stuff. Okay, so what did they show? That he got a couple shots of Demerol, that he took Demerol in the 1993 and in 2002 or so, and that doctors went to Neverland Ranch, and he was friendly, and Dr. Farshon put a device in him to try to rid him of the opiates, and that Dr. Farshon said that he did everything for his children, and they showed that he asked 3 people, I think, for propofol, and they refused to give it to him, Quinn, Lee, Metzger, and they showed that he got charged in a criminal case. They kept bringing that up. He got charged, he got charged, he got charged, all the time. Okay, he did. But what does that have to do with this trial? Why do they want to bring that out? Because they want you to not like him. And then they showed that his mom signed a letter to People magazine, and they showed that he was in a lawsuit where he didn't go to a concert, and they showed that Mr. Fournier and him had a dispute, and Mr. Fournier told him, don't go home, so he went to Kentucky Fried Chicken, and they wanted to bring that out. Why do you think? That he was eating chicken after the procedure. And then they showed that Mr. DeLeo, when he was thin, said, get him a bucket of chicken. I mean, why are they bringing all that out? And then they showed that he spent a lot of money, and that he bought things for his mom and other people, and that he donated money to hospitals, and he donated money to charities, and he did concerts for free, and he wrote songs to help people in Africa, and he wrote songs to help people. That's all the ugly. I mean, what have we seen in this case that we hadn't heard before? Where's all the ugly stuff, okay? He used Demerol. Presidents, John F. Kennedy, you heard that? He was fine. He was the president, used Demerol. But Michael wasn't having any problems until got back into this deal with AEG. He was fine. Remember they said he was fine, he was fine, he was fine. He was great, he was excited. And then the pressure started to build, and AEG was making the contract with Murray, and Murray was pressured, and Michael was pressured, and they're meeting at his house, and they're putting Murray and Phillips in charge of everything. And he could lose everything. But AEG just wanted the show to go on. And what was Michael to do? So he didn't do the right thing maybe, but so you decide if he's negligent. And what I want to talk about here is another thing counsel said. You're going to see the evidence that shows the truth that will actually come to light that Mr. Jackson had been abusing this drug, propofol, for years, okay? Where's that evidence? Where is it? Well, what we know is they said he wasn't addicted to propofol. He received propofol in Germany 2 times, set up by Dr. Metzger, in an appropriate procedure, and he had no problem. And sure, it doesn't give you real sleep, but he thought it did. So sure, maybe he shouldn't have done it, but he never had a problem. And all the other times that he had propofol in the evidence is for procedures. And they're saying, well, he's a baby, he doesn't like pain. But every doctor that came in or testified on video, Quinn, I can't remember, all the doctors said that propofol was appropriate, Fournier, for the procedures that he was getting. It wasn't always that people had it, but it was appropriate. And he never said, give me propofol. They just gave him the medication. What's Kevin Garnett's name? Adams, Dr. Adams in Las Vegas, Dr. Sasaki, Dr. So many doctors. Doctor shopping. He never, no one came in and said he was going to them for the purpose of getting medication, just to like get free drugs. No one said that he used any recreational drugs, ever. No evidence of that. No evidence that he was using any drugs to get high. The only evidence is that he was using propofol for legitimate medical purposes, twice in Germany, and at this time, in his desperate state, to get sleep. And boy, everybody knows what it's like to not have sleep. And imagine to be a performer and having all this pressure with no sleep. I mean, obviously he was desperate for sleep, and that's what caused the problem. But Murray is the one that gave it to him. And AEG wants to just drive by and say, hey, that's not us, man. That's not us. So Karen Fay talked to Debbie Rowe 2 times in Germany, always in a surgical suite. She was impressed what happened. Remember the letter to Metzger from the German doctor. He didn't remember everything. He didn't have a habit of using it. He respected the doctors. He would rely on the doctors. You know, hey, maybe it wasn't a good idea to rely on them. But he didn't really want meds except for pain and the recreational phenomena. And remember this, what started, I mean, there was never a problem for Michael from when he was born until the Pepsi commercial. And you know, that nobody's talked about that. But you know, everyone has pain for a different reason. And what started his pain was through no fault of his own. He had a horrific burn injury. He had keloid scarring. He had skin expanders. He had so many surgeries. It was so painful. And you know, he isn't in the NFL. He doesn't have the highest pain threshold. You know, they say you're injured, you're hurt. Okay? He's not a professional football player. He's not a college football player. He's a 100-and-some pound singer, entertainer, writer, humanitarian. And he didn't like pain. And everyone's different in that regard. And so, okay, maybe he was a baby, they said, but he didn't want to take the pain to get high, the medication to get high. He took it for pain. And then he had the fall in Munich. I mean, he had herniated discs. He took pain meds. Okay? So then you got to find out if it was a substantial factor, again, on that. And then you've got to do the percent. So what I've done is made like a pie. This is what I think. You may think it's less. You may think it's more. I think he's at least 20% if you find comparative negligence responsible. Because you got to look at him in the state he was in. Sure, he got involved with Murray. Sure, he knew that propofol could be dangerous. He thought Murray could do it right. It wasn't. Okay? But the rest goes on AEG. Mr. Putnam, AEG lawyer, they didn't give you any numbers. But I think that's fair. And what you got to do is you got to compare. Because remember, they hire Murray, and whether Michael chose him, selected him, his personal doctor, doesn't matter. They created the conflict. There's no conflict. We're not here. They are the ones that wanted the written contract with Murray. Michael never asked for it. They never showed it to him. So, let me... I already did that one. All right. I'm going to wind up, and I know there's going to be a million things that I wish I would have said, but it's getting close to lunchtime. Again, I want to thank everyone for all your time. I mean, it's been a long trial. And I know the sacrifices that everyone's made personally to be here on time, to be attentive. I've never seen, 7 notepads. I mean, it's unheard of. I think some may have more. But that shows the type of attentiveness that all of you had, and I want to thank you on behalf of Mrs. Jackson, Prince, Blanket, and Paris. And I know you do the right thing. Before I close, I want to tell you a little story about when I was in college, and they, that one, what was that witness? Ackerman said, you went to Fresno State. And did that. I did. I played football in college, and my coach was from Montana. And he would always tell us a story before the game. Because once you're getting ready for the game and you're going to get ready for your deliberations, and I know you're going to take it serious, you're just not going to go in there and say no and leave so everybody can leave, okay? And when all the work is done and you're getting ready for the game, he reminded us of a story. It goes like this. There was a wise old man in Montana. And in Montana, there were these kids that always thought that they're going to get one over on the wise old man. And they never could succeed. So one day, a sparrow fell from a nest. And one of the boys picked it up and called all his buddies over and said, you see, I'm going to fool the wise old man. I got it. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go up there and I'm going to say, okay, wise old man. And I'm going to hold my hands out like this. And I'm going to say, is the bird dead or is the bird alive? And if he says the bird is dead, I'm going to open my hand. And if he says the bird is alive, I'm going to crush it in my hand. There's no way he's going to get one on us this time. So they go up there and they say, okay, wise old man, is the bird alive or is the bird dead? And he looks and he said, lad, the fate of the bird is in your hands. And ladies and gentlemen, the fate of Prince Michael, Paris, Blanket, and Katherine Jackson is in your hands, and I know you'll do the right thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go out for lunch. Come back to this room at 1:30, and I will read you some concluding instructions, maybe 4 or 5. I'm going to swear the bailiffs, and then you can start deliberation. Okay? All right, thank you. See you at 1:30. Courtroom. Your decision must be based on your personal evaluation of the evidence presented in the case. Each of you may be asked in open court how you voted on each question. While I know you would not do this, I am required to advise you that you must not base your decision on chance, such as to make the average your verdict. You may take breaks, but do not discuss this case with anyone, including each other, until all of you are back in the jury room. If you have taken notes during the trial, you may take your notebooks with you into the jury room. You may use your notes only to help you remember what happened during the trial. Your independent recollection of the evidence should govern your verdict. You should not allow yourself to be influenced by the notes of other jurors if those notes differ from what you remember. At the end of the trial, your notes will be collected and destroyed. You may request in writing that trial testimony be read to you. I will have the court reporter read the testimony to you. You may request that all or a part of a witness's testimony be read. Your request should be as specific as possible. It will be helpful if you can state 1. The name of the witness, 2. The subject of the testimony you would like to have read, and 3. The name of the attorney or attorneys asking the questions when the testimony was given. The court reporter is not permitted to talk with you when he or she is reading the testimony you have requested. While the court reporter is reading the testimony, you may not deliberate or discuss the case. You may not ask the court reporter to read testimony that was not specifically mentioned in a written request. If your notes differ from the testimony, you must accept the court reporter's record as accurate. I will give you a verdict form with questions you must answer. I have already instructed you on the law that you are to use in answering these questions. You must follow my instructions and the forms carefully. You must consider each question separately. Although you may discuss the evidence and the issues to be decided in any order, you must answer the questions on the verdict form in the order they appear. After you answer a question, the form tells you what to do next. All 12 of you must deliberate on and answer each question. At least 9 of you must agree on an answer before all of you can move on to the next question. However, the same 9 or more people do not have to agree on each answer. When you have finished filling out the forms, your presiding juror must write the date and sign it at the bottom and then notify the court attendant that you are ready to present your verdict in the courtroom. After your verdict is read in open court, you may be asked individually to indicate whether the verdict expresses your personal view. This is referred to as polling the jury and is done to ensure that at least 9 jurors have agreed to each decision. The verdict form that you will receive asks you to answer several questions. You must vote separately on each question. Although 9 or more jurors must agree on each answer, it does not have to be the same 9 for each answer. Therefore, it is important for each of you to remember how you have voted on each question, so that if the jury is polled, each of you will be able to answer accurately about how you voted. Each of you will be provided a draft copy of the verdict form for your use in keeping track of your votes. A sound or video recording has been admitted into evidence, and a transcript of the recording has been provided to you. The recording itself is the evidence. The transcript may not be completely accurate. It may contain errors, omissions, or notations of inaudible portions of the recording. Therefore, you should use the transcript only as a guide Therefore, you should use the transcript only as a guide to help you in following along with the recording. If there is a discrepancy between your understanding of the recording and the transcript, your understanding of the recording must prevail. During the trial, materials have been shown to you to help explain testimony or other evidence in the case. Some of these materials have been admitted into evidence, and you will be able to review them during your deliberations. Other materials have also been shown to you during the trial, but have not been admitted into evidence. You will be able to review them during your deliberations because they are not themselves evidence or proof of any facts. You may, however, consider the testimony given in connection with these materials. As alternate jurors, you are bound by the same rules that govern the conduct of the jurors who are sitting on the panel. You should not form or express any opinion about the case until after you have been substituted in for one of the deliberating jurors on the panel or until the jury has been discharged. Okay. Clerk, swear the bailiff.
Do you solemnly state that you will take charge of the jury and keep them together, that you will not speak to them yourself nor allow anyone else to speak to them upon matters connected with this case, except on order of the court? And when they have agreed upon a verdict, you will return them into the court. And furthermore, do you solemnly state that you would take charge of the alternate jurors and keep them apart from the jury while they are deliberating on the cause, until otherwise instructed by the court, so help you God? And starting with you, sir, can you please state and spell your first and last name for the record?
Deputy Reginald Hoffman, Reginald R-E-G-I-N-A-L-D, last name Hoffman, H-O-F-F-M-A-N.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Veronica Solis, Courtroom Assistant, V-E-R-O-N-I-C-A-S-O-L-I-S.
Deputy Luis Reese, L-U-I-S-R-U-I-Z.
Sir?
John Smith, J-O-N-S-M-I-T-H.
Sarah Pineda, S-A-R-A, last name P-I-N-E-D-A.
Milburn Robinson, M-I-L-B-U-R-N, R-O-B-I-N-S-O-N.
Douglas Stewart, D-O-U-G-L-A-S-J-E-W-E-T-T.
Russell Moreno, R-U-S-S-E-L-L-M-O-R-E-N-O.
Lawrence Diggs, L-A-W-R-E-N-C-E-D-I-G-G-S.
Humberto Segura, H-E-R-I-B-E-R-T-O-O-S-G-U-E-R-A.
Eduardo Gonzalez, E-D-U-A-R-D-O-V-O-N-Z-A-L-E-Z.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. What I need you to do is follow the deputies and the clerk back to Department 28, because that's where you're going to be deliberating. And the alternates, we're going to send you to a different place, but you'll have a separate group of deputies who will take you there. Okay? So, back to Department 28. Thank you. Yes. Oh, are you going to put that in writing? Or? Oh, okay. Concerning alternate number 1, correct? Okay.
Actually, it's concerning,
All the alternates?
well, yes, but in general, it's concerning 2 specifically.
Okay, well, all right. State your stipulation.
That the council has agreed that if an alternate has another engagement, then they can be free to go do what intend to the business that they have to, but the regular jury can continue to deliberate. And that if a problem arises where an alternate has to be called in, then the jury would stop, and depending on the alternate's whereabouts or schedule, things would stop until that alternate was able to come back, and then the jury could begin deliberation.
And if that alternate cannot return, then what?
Then the alternate, I presume, would be excused, Your
Then
Honor, at
we'll-
that point.
Then we'll deal with it?
Exactly. We'll deal with that if it happens.
Okay, all right. So stipulated?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do you think we need who makes the decision about whether an engagement is such that the alternate can?
I think that would be.
I think we have a discussion about that separately if we need.
I think right now we know that there are 2, I don't want to state their names, but it's been given to us on the courtroom calendar as to who the 2 that this applies to at this time. If something else comes up, we can certainly.
If there's a dispute about it, you can always address me. But basically, that's the outline of the stipulation. Agreed? Yes. Okay. Are you all going to come to Department 28 or go your way, and we'll call you if something happens?
My understanding, Your Honor, is that we're going to be getting calls for readbacks or a verdict. We're happy to come to Department 28 if there's anything for us to
Okay.
do.
Did you?
Mailing all the information.
Okay. Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.